Good afternoon. Namaste. So, if you're tuning in, hi and welcome. I am going to speak today about the 5 hindrances as described by the Theravadan Buddhist tradition and how to understand them as a way to encourage more insightful meditation. Before I do that, I just want to say that I got back from Wales last night, where I stayed in very simple accommodation in a mud hut with a hearth and really out in nature. And although I'm aware of the importance of reconnecting to nature, it brought it home to me in a very poignant way. And I hope all of you have an opportunity to go back to the natural environment if you're in a city like I am, because it just does something for the spirit. But you're not here to learn about my ideas on that today, so I digress. As I have explained in other videos and in many lectures that I've given, I started practicing meditation and yoga because I was struggling with depression, anxiety, and later I would find out also post-traumatic stress. And I think mindfulness has had absolutely almost invaluable skills offered to me and has helped me to transform my life as well as yoga in ways that I probably didn't think were imaginable. And I am so happy that mindfulness is really pervading the culture and more people are practicing meditation. As mindfulness becomes part of many different societies, it's often divested of some of the elements of the original tradition. And that makes sense because not everybody is interested, for example, in Buddhist teachings, which is what the current mindfulness movement is drawing on. But I personally think that there are specific aspects of the Buddhist teachings which are really beneficial. And that is why I want to talk today about the 5 hindrances. So the 5 hindrances essentially are 5 different things that commonly arise in the mind which cause great pain and suffering. And we often confuse that pain of suffering from coming from the outside. But in fact, if we understand these hindrances as possible mental arising states, and we see them as something that our mind is giving rise to instead, we feel empowered because we recognize that although very much toilsome to be able to unroot these kinds of ways of thinking, that it is all in our hands. It's all in our hands. So what are these 5 mental states, which the Buddha defined as the roots of suffering? One is desire, and that is desire not just for things that we imagine, like we want the perfect relationship or house or car or job or to look a perfect way that we imagine, whatever that is, but it's also to desire things to be other than what they are, to perceive the present moment and to wish the present moment had other features and qualities. So essentially it's a lack of satisfaction with what is. The next one is aversion, and it's kind of like almost the same thing as desire in the sense that it's a sense of being dissatisfied and wanting to push away something that we don't want in hope for something else that we prefer. But it has a slightly different energy in that it is more rejecting, whereas desire is kind of pulling something towards us or wishing something would draw in towards us. The next one is sloth and torpor, which I think got translated in the early 1900s. We could probably just call it sleepiness, because that's essentially what it is. But it's suggesting that although in our modern society we tend to really overwork and over-engage our senses, so many of us are truly exhausted, often we use sleep as a way to not face what is arising, right? Or we get bored, and so we just kind of like allow ourselves to lull off to sleep. When in fact, if we stayed present with that experience, a brightness in mind would arise. The next one is restlessness and worry, and I think that that really speaks for itself. And then the last one is doubt. And And doubt is doubt of ourselves, right? And often translated as, we use it more in the modern world, a lack of sense of self-worth, but also the traditional understanding of doubt, which is the inability to trust a specific thing, so the mind keeps bouncing and bouncing. How about this? How about this? How about this? Could this be better? Could that be better? What about that? What about that? What about that? So we never kind of just allow ourselves to trust and reside in something, right? And it's also doubt of the spiritual practice. Oh, this isn't good for me. I'm suffering as a result of trying this thing, and so this is obviously bad, when often, in fact, as we are transforming ourselves, unpleasant experiences are key. So let's get a little bit more into this. How do we actually work with this? Well, the first thing is, when we feel unhappy, dissatisfied, agitated, uncomfortable, is to direct the attention instead of to the outside. I wish things were different. I wish I was different. To start to look inwardly and to ask oneself, are one of these 5 hindrances presently in my mind? Am I wanting things to be different? Almost invariably, the answer will be yes. Am I pushing something away? And that doesn't mean that all things are good for us and we should just allow everything in. No, that's not what it means. But it does mean that the energy of rejection, which is uncomfortable, may be present, which is different than discerning what is useful for us. Am I just sleepy and avoidant? Am I nervous and restless, wanting things to really relax and be calm? Understanding that actually sometimes things are not calm. And am I seeking certainty amongst the reality of uncertainty, which is the true nature of reality? In fact, my Buddhist meditation teacher used to say, if I can tell you one thing, just one teaching, it is to practice not knowing, because that is the truth. You don't know. And if you can accept that and be open to that, you have learned everything that I need to teach you. I'm still working with uncertainty. So the first thing is to identify if one of these things is in the mind, and to change the trajectory, or to change the perception from, I'm suffering because I don't have this. I'm suffering because this is here and I want it to go away. I'm suffering because I'm tired, or I'm suffering because something's making me nervous. And instead to see, I'm suffering because the mind is wanting. I'm suffering because the mind is rejecting. Now, I happen to really like the Mahasi Burmese method of identifying these different qualities of mind. It really, really helps me, and it might help you as well. And what this involves is mental labeling. So essentially, if you notice, there is desire, or there is doubt, you mentally say to yourself, desire, desire, or doubting, 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 just like this. So you move from the subjective to the objective, right? To a process-based phenomenon. And very interestingly, actually in 2007, there was a research study looking at mental labeling, which found, it was done by Creswell, Creswell, that when you are engaged in the mental labeling of experience, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that helps to downgrade fear and agitation, is more active. So you can do that. You can label the experience. And then maybe you start to actually feel it. To go into the body. Where in my body do I feel this sense of desire that's quite uncomfortable? For me personally, when I feel that, it's usually like this beating in my chest. Or where do I feel this sloth and torpor, this sleepiness? For me, it will be usually here in the temples and here in the front part of my forehead, right here in the center. And bring it to, again, something that's objective, a sensation that is arising. Now, the next thing that you can do, and often that may be enough, and you may feel it lifting a little bit, or you may become interested and intrigued, which is a big shift from being in the place of upset. Curiosity, in terms of a form of Buddhist meditation, or Buddhist meditation in general, is kind of the antidote. So you become interested. What does this feel like really inside myself? But the next thing is to offer the actual antidote. So for desire, right, you want things to be different than what they are, or you want to have something that you don't have. What you can do at that time is then practice gratitude. And I was brought up in a tradition where you list 5 things that you have which make your life worthy, which maybe you weren't paying attention to. For example, right now, I'm healthy. And I'm grateful for being healthy, as I've been sick many times, and I know that many other beings in this world are currently sick and struggling. Or I'm grateful for being able to offer this teaching to you, as it's helped me so much when so many other people are in a place, and I'm sure you know this from your own students or yourself at times, where there's no clarity, and so there can be no teaching for self or for other, and so on and so forth. So you can express 5 different points of gratitude, and you actually compare them against what it would be like to be in the opposite position, to really remind yourself that what you have now is enough. Now for aversion, we often practice loving kindness, right? So if we want to push something away, firstly, that's a very negative feeling that we have within ourselves, and it's totally natural, again, to want to push something away, so we don't have to be judgmental about that. And because it is painful to want to push something away, we first send loving kindness to ourselves. So we might say something like one of my teachers used to say, "May I be happy and peaceful, healthy and at ease. May I be able to take care of myself joyfully. And may I possess the patience, wisdom, courage, and determination to meet the difficulties in my life," right? And maybe another day I'll do a whole loving kindness meditation thing. So you can do that for yourself first, and then send it to the other things for which you are experiencing aversion towards. It can be a situation, it can be a person, an animal, it can even be just an arising feeling other than aversion, like I'm averse to being tired, or something like that. Sloth and torpor. So this one's tough, right? How do you suddenly just notice this deep desire to just lull into sleep and work with that? Well, my meditation teacher had a few things. One, he would ask me to shout in my mind, "Sleepy, sleepy, sleepy," and that would often wake me up. He would also ask me to really feel into what sleepiness was like, because that is something we very seldom do, because we take it as a compulsion rather than just a rising mental state, right? And I've already mentioned that we can do this, but with sleepiness we can go deeper into that sensation and feeling to just kind of check out of conscious reality. And it's a great time to do pranayama, right? So it's a great time to integrate yoga practices. That's not technically taught in the Buddhist tradition, but that's my offering to you. A great time to do Kapalabhati or alternate nostril breathing, especially with holds for both of those, or after them. Then we have restlessness and worry. So what do? Once again, it's a great time to do pranayama if the worry is so intense that identifying it is simply not enough, and the level of discomfort keeps spiraling up and up and up, which can happen. Another thing to do is to simply remind oneself that we are actually in the present moment. There are very few times in life where the thing that we are anxious about is happening exactly now. And that's never more true than meditation, when we're sitting silently, right? So just say, okay, I'm imagining something in the future. I am envisioning that I will not be okay, but this is simply a process of imagining. And allow yourself to rest in all of the arising thoughts and sensations, and just remember that whatever it is you are projecting has yet to occur, and that actually the best way to manage anxiety is to just allow yourself to feel it, right? Especially from a Buddhist meditation perspective. The last is doubt, right? And within the tradition of Buddhism, what you do is you just keep coming back to one point. So you see the mind that says, oh, it's not good enough, I'm not good enough, or this decision isn't good enough. You say, okay, that's just thinking, and you come back to the breathing. What about this? It's just thinking, oh, I'm going to fix that tomorrow. You just come back to the breathing over and over and over. And you take it to be a sign of the mind not being able to rest in one point. So its antidote is feeding that ability to be with one point, which takes active bringing back over and over and over again, and is ultimately the development of attentional control, which is a fantastic thing to have in your daily life and really helps to support your meditation to grow stronger, so that you can actually sit down sometimes and not only be grappling with these mental states, but actually experiencing peace. And we need that because our lives are so fraught with agitation and busyness, and to just be able to rejuvenate our energy a little bit by being in a place of consistent attention on something simple like the breath is incredibly energizing and invigorating. So I hope this was helpful. This is probably my first off-the-cuff Dhamma talk. Usually I speak from a place of discussing yoga and yoga practices and physiology, but I spent 3 years living in Buddhist monasteries, and I think that there's a lot of value of what I learned over that time, and I'd like to share it. And I'd love for you also to share your input and insight. And actually, although my specific take on it is coming from me, these are very ancient teachings. So just remember, when you are feeling dissatisfied or scared as a result of the external phenomenon in life or situations, that actually you can come back and see that all of these things, all of your fears and discomfort, are manifestations of your mind. And if you redirect your mind to those things, you can be empowered to let go, regardless of the external circumstances. And how great is that? That no matter what happens, no matter how difficult life gets, you can return to peace by working with your mind. There are no guarantees with what you can have in life. You may lose many things, and you may experience great discomfort. But the ability to work with your mind, that does not leave you. I hope that's helpful. Namaste.